What's up, gearheads, and welcome to Gear Cafe. We're here in Singapore at HKS Garage R, talking with my buddy Dre because the way the car culture is completely different from back home, and I really wanted to pick his brain. So without further ado, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, John.
I appreciate you coming out and doing this and having us come to the shop. And you know, it's always a treat getting to come down here and get to see all the guys. So today I figured we'd kind of touch on how kind of the car culture changes and what makes it really different. So let's maybe tell the viewers a little bit about what's the significant difference between our culture in North America and here.
Hi guys, my name is Andre. I'm a representative from HKS Garage R Singapore. I'm glad to have John come all the way down here from Canada to do a video with us. Very excited. Yeah. So pertaining to that question, I would say Singapore is it's a very small market relative to America's size or Canada's size, you know. And we're looking at about 600,000 cars in Singapore on the road. And only in Singapore do you have to own a piece of paper. We call it the COE, you know, the Certificate of Entitlement.
Right.
And without that, you can't own a car officially in Singapore.
Wow.
Now, with this piece of paper, and you have to pay for it, with this piece of paper, you can legally call yourself an owner of the car.
Wow.
And sometimes, the piece of paper is actually more expensive than the car, which does not make sense.
I've heard.
Yeah.
It's
so,
crazy. Because
of that, you know, and the COE only lasts for 10 years, and it's just a vicious cycle all over again. You're gonna have to think of what car you want to buy, most probably 2-3 years before that, you know, before the COE expires. You know. So because of that, I would say it's very different in terms of the numbers, you know, the population. Geography-wise as well, Singapore is beside countries around that actually, they keep adding cars on the road, whereas in Singapore, we're reducing the number of cars on the road. So it's a very different culture altogether.
We don't really have to let up at all. I mean, it's you can have people back home like at cars every day of the week, every day of the month, and as long as you have the property to hold those cars, then it's no real big deal. Now, since we're in Garage R now, I really wanted to know on the roots. And in this new season, we're basically talking a bit about how everything starts and how where everything kind of comes from. So with Garage R, there's a big history, and you guys have done a lot in racing, a lot of motorsports. So why don't you go ahead and just tell the viewers exactly how you guys all got started and how did Garage R even come to be?
All right. It's a question asked too many times. But
I'm sure.
I'll do it again. So basically, Garage R is a company that was started off about 25 years ago. It was founded by Mr. Lester Wong and his brother Chin Yen, aka Jum. And these two brothers were basically, they had a devout passion for motorsports. You know, what started off as an accessories workshop transformed into a technical factory that built race cars from scratch. They overhauled engines, overhauled transmissions, and they made the effort to try to increase the performance for every car make and model. You know, back in the old days, and how we try to be relevant currently.
Right.
So we kind of actually grew from that. And we participated and won a few competitions. And because of that, we actually made a name for ourselves in the industry as market leaders in the motorsport scene. So other than just being a workshop, you know, we have actually expanded our services. We do car sales. We bring in cars from Japan, Germany, you name it. We do car loans, car insurance, car rentals. We do a distribution center as well of high performance parts in Southeast Asia. So I think that's the main gist of Garage R. You know, from a company standpoint, it's also become a brand. We do retail our own merchandise as well. So because of that, it's really become more of a lifestyle brand, a motorsports kind of, I would say, get together, an organization of everything combined.
Like a collaboration.
Kind of.
Now, knowing how things are now, right? We all learn from our past and take from our past and to be able to progress in the future. Would there be anything different you guys would have done business-wise? Maybe any sort of events that you wouldn't have want to go into? Like a direction. Is there anything you should have done differently or could have done differently?
That's a very good question. Actually, due to the brands that we carry at HKS Garage R Singapore, as in the name itself suggests, you know, we retail HKS, and we are the exclusive distributors for HKS in Singapore and Malaysia. So because of the brands that we carry, including of HKS, I think in the backdrop you see SSR, Decal.
Right.
These are all Japanese brands, and because of that, we've become very Japanese car-centric.
Okay.
And that's the thing. I felt that over the last maybe 1 to 2 years, we started to onboard more European cars.
Okay.
And I was hoping that we could have been actually slightly earlier, in the transition phase, because of the growing market of European cars.
Right.
Not only in Singapore but all over the world. So I would say that's one area.
Right.
Back to motorsports as well, I believe we've become a bit more conservative.
Okay.
Over the last few years, we didn't really get ourselves involved with track days, stuff like that. But thankfully, as of this year, we are hosting a track day in Sepang. And we'll be doing 4-time attacks. Without the support of our business partners and sponsors, this would not have been possible. So we're very thankful to have people on board to actually support us to organize such events.
Nice.
After all, it's all about motorsports culture, and I believe, there are more than enough people that can agree for sure that motorsports has to carry on.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think much of us gearheads would even be enthused about race cars or performance if it wasn't for somebody who did it first.
Yeah.
I really do appreciate the fact that, I mean, you guys got where you guys are to collaborate with others, right? And then so that's where we are today. I like the fact that, we can kind of unite things together, whether it be car clubs, whether it be shows, whether it be companies. And if you look at all the major companies that ever became successful, it was all because they tag teamed with somebody else.
Yeah, I would have to agree 100% on that. Nowadays, it's all about working together, partnerships. Back in the past, things were too competitive. Right. Everyone was trying to get to the top. Right. As we all know, there's always enough market for everyone.
Absolutely.
There's always a piece of pie for everyone to share.
That's right.
So I think, I totally agree with you 100%. In Singapore, the same thing. We rely on partnerships nowadays. We need the support of everyone to make things to progress.
Right.
If not, everyone's just gonna fall together.
Yeah. All right, now that kind of gives me a good idea on how things are happening and how things are going. What kind of made you guys who you are today? But what are you guys doing to make sure you're here tomorrow? Tell me a bit about maybe some future plans and stuff you got going on.
All right. I think at Garage R, we service a very niche group of car owners.
Okay.
So basically, we are known to carry more quality or more premium products and services. And sometimes, or most of the times, these come with a bigger price tag, to it. But the thing about Singaporeans that I believe is that we are willing to pay for something, that has value to it. And if I'm paying for an item that is so expensive, I would like it to be properly installed, number one.
Right.
And number two, I would hope for it to be covered, product warranty, stuff like that, in case something happens. And that's why people still come back to us at Garage R, because you can be safe to know that everything that you do in Garage R, at our workshop, is done professionally. Okay. Whether it's installation and after sales, whether if any issues, warranty, all this stuff, it's something that's covered by us throughout the entire warranty duration. So I think that is one reason why I would say people still come back to us. But back to your question on like what we feel, what will be the next move, what's the next step. The market's shifting from performance to maintenance, And for us, we are slowly pulling ourselves away from being solely a performance hub, a performance center, to something more diverse. So we've been moving towards more distribution. We've been distributing to more companies, more workshops, and at the same time as well, we've been focusing at Garage R a lot of maintenance as well. We believe that after all, if you want to upkeep a certain level of performance, you need a very strong foundation of maintenance as well. And that is why we focus on 2020, this entire direction of the company is going to move towards maintenance as well. Okay. And maintenance is going to be key. As long as you want to boost the horsepower to 1,000 plus.
Right.
Not even 1,000 plus. For maybe smaller CC cars nowadays, a good 200-300 horsepower is actually amazing already. And to achieve this kind of horsepower, I believe you need the kind of maintenance, right, to protect your car in case something blows. You don't want an engine to blow when you're doing a hot lap. Yeah. Right.
Okay, now, basically, because of all these restrictions the government puts, because of COEs, because of fines and all that, I find, just from me kind of just seeing how how many cars I would see modified versus how many cars I would see modified back home,
Yeah.
whether it be just a brake kit or whether it's the wheels on, something like that. I see a couple simple things done, but it's almost like it's per capita a lot less.
Yep.
Now, do you believe there is a decline in the amount of car culture we have in Singapore? And like, kind of, if so, what do you believe the reason is?
That's a very tough question. I'll try my best to answer that. I believe there are many reasons to why there's a decline in car culture in Singapore. I would say the first reason why it's because I'll blame the Japanese car manufacturers. You know, and I'll give you a very good example. Mitsubishi. 10 years ago, they built the Evo 10, and that was the last of its kind. You know, in the performance lineup in Mitsubishi, they moved towards SUVs for families, and they moved towards mass market cars as well for practicality purposes. You know, so because of that, I believe that it costs lesser performance cars to be built. And because of that, it will inevitably lead to lesser people buying such cars in Singapore as well. So I would say, yeah, definitely the kind of cars that are manufactured nowadays are not very much cars that you can play around with as much. Yeah, and I would say another reason would be because of the younger generations. Nowadays, you see kids playing with their phones, playing with computers, not so much cars, I believe.
More preoccupied doing something else.
Yeah. I believe that is going to be very difficult for Singapore to actually break through, because it's difficult to get young people to come on board.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I know our car culture, I mean, from our generation, came from our dads, came from our uncles.
Yes.
And in that era, during the 60s, 70s, 80s even, well, 80s kind of sucked for North American cars, but 60s, 70s, I mean, you had some pretty badass muscle cars. And that car culture, was kind of like, I mean, very prominent, very prosperous, big companies coming out, big names. So, I mean, if we can't hope that the next generation will carry us on, what do you think is the result in the end?
Well, we're gonna have to rely on the old birds, the people that started everything.
It's gonna be us growing old, and keeping that alive.
Yeah, it's gonna be difficult, and that's not only it. In Singapore, obviously, we have our governing body of cars transport. We call them the Land Transport Authority, LTA in short. And they kind of regulate the kind of modifications that you can do to your car. So if you're lucky enough, you can actually get an aftermarket exhaust for your car. If you're not lucky, you don't have anything at all. So if you can even get an aftermarket rear muffler for your car that you can slap on, which is legal, you are considered very lucky in Singapore.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So no straight pipe in anything.
No, definitely not. That was back in those days.
That was a track car, I guess.
Yeah. But nowadays things are just more strict. We have to abide to the regulations in case we get fined.
Right. I mean, as a company, that's a little more serious matter versus just a personal matter if you have your own car. Right. You think that's the only reason? Or we've got the generational side. I mean, obviously, as we get older, the culture will stay with us.
Yes.
Right? And then you've got all the government side of things, the fines and whatnot. But is that really all there is to blame?
Well, in the past, it was all about performance, who had the highest horsepower, what was under your bonnet, So I guess there's a general shift as well in car culture. Most people are going for aesthetics, So we ourselves will provide a range of performance parts for mass market cars. And mass market cars, for example, like the Toyota CHR, the Honda Fit, Honda Shuttle, Honda Jazz, Honda Vezel, Suzuki Swift. These are some examples of mass market cars in Singapore. And it's interesting to see how mass market cars are demanding certain performance parts, aesthetic parts, because this has become the new culture. They join clubs in Singapore, they join club meets, and they actually just go out for a simple drive, as simple as that, with their new setup. But then again, cars in Singapore are so expensive. So it would be nice if you can actually improve your drive feel, maybe get an improved look.
Different suspensions or something like that, or
just get up, get more of just a stock car kind of setup. But as in obviously for husbands, please seek your wife's approval.
Number one, that's number one. Okay, now flash forward 10 years. I want to just paint a picture in your head. What do you think that the car culture in Singapore will end up looking like?
That's hard to say, I think we can all agree that more cars are becoming electrical. The mechanical cars are being phased out. and we cannot eschew the entire gaming industry. Well, people from F1, they're looking for the next drivers through this channel.
Okay.
Online gaming, racing, esports.
Cool.
But for one thing, I believe that the car culture in Singapore will always stay. The reason why is because buying a car in Singapore, it's always going to be a want.
Right.
And because of this very reason, I believe that whether or not you actually dive into performance, aftermarket modifications, stuff like that,
Right.
there in itself, it's a culture, right? So I'd say for us at Garage R, 10 years down the road, even, I still believe we'll be heavily invested in motorsports or performance,
That's great, yeah.
And if we have any customers that come in looking for upgrades and stuff, we'll be more than happy to actually recommend or suggest what would be applicable, what would be available for your car,
Yeah.
So I always believe that motorsport enthusiasts, they're not born, they're bred,
Yeah.
Even for me, this company made me a bigger car enthusiast altogether, And I'd say a good avenue to start, for enthusiasts and stuff like that would be to join track days, go for car meets, join car clubs, go for events, in Singapore. And we'll just hope for the new blood, the younger generation to keep the motorsports flame burning. It's going to be something that we'll be very aware of,
Right.
This entire transition. It's coming,
Yeah.
but we are prepared for it. Yeah, this entire transition in culture.
I'm super, super thankful for coming down here and having you on the show.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. And guys, for those of you who have not seen anything from Garage R on Instagram and Facebook, they're all over that. And there's always going to be a lot of people who are truly enthusiasts of, of cars and to modifying.
Yeah.
But for the next generation, I guess we just got to hope that they catch on faster. And let's hope that it stays strong and doesn't ever die off. But thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, John. Yeah, pleasure.
And yeah, until the next episode, do it moves, you guys.